Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion on the fallout from the first chapter of the manga. And today I want to talk to you guys about something that I've seen a lot of people bring up in the comment section, which is why does Code have that scar over his eye and how did he get that scar over his eye? Enough so that I thought it needed to be addressed in its own video. So as we all know, Boruto's generation weren't the only people who got time skip changes, so too did Code, and it's led to a ton of speculation on how he got the scar over his eye. It's quickly becoming the thing of myth where people are asking how did he get that scar over his eye, just like how One Piece fans are for many years now speculating that Zoro got that scar over his eye and that Sad Eye clearly has some super mysterious power behind it, and we're now starting to see similar conditions and conclusions form about Code. So what I want to do is I actually want to go over some of the more popular topics that we have regarding this mystery, and I want to weigh in on it because I'm going to be transparent and say that I think I'm in the minority when it comes to this topic. I'm of the belief that the simple answer is the likely one, which is that Boruto ended up giving Code that scar over his eye during the many battles that they had during that 2 years where Code was hunting Boruto, or that Sasuke managed to give it to Code, particularly if this happened early on during the hunting process and Boruto wasn't quite yet trained up to fight a power of a Jigen plus level threat. That explains Boruto not just stepping on Code's face, but him having his hand on his sword hilt and his foot being placed directly over Code's scar. What is more disrespectful than having the person who gave you the scar over their eye also have their foot over that said scar and have their hand on their sword, basically with the unspoken threat of doing the same thing again to the other eye itself? If we take it way back to Kishimoto's statement back in 2015 when he was promoting Boruto the movie, he said the main difference between Naruto and Boruto is that when you get past Boruto being more naturally talented than Naruto was, is the fact that whereas Naruto has to stumble his way through and speak around to get to how he really feels because he's not the brightest person, Boruto on the other hand is more intelligent, he's more direct, and he's a lot more sarcastic than his father ever was. Not my words, that's Kishimoto's words, and so much smarter than all the other people around him that Boruto tends to naturally find the shortest ways to accomplish complicated things, which leads to him skipping steps. Hence why we see fast forward 3 years after Kishimoto made that statement, when we look at the versus Momoshiki arc in the anime, Sasuke basically tells Boruto like, yeah, you're very talented, but you're too talented for your own good. As you are right now, you can't hope to learn high level lightning release because you don't know the basics of lightning release, which goes back to Kishimoto saying that Boruto learns things too quickly, and Kakashi made a similar observation watching Boruto make the Rasengan and basically made Boruto start over from scratch with the Rasengan before helping him make the wind release Rasengan and the compression Rasengan. So the big thing is that Kishi said Boruto's too smart for his own good, but most importantly, he's extremely sarcastic, and these two things go hand in hand together. Sarcasm is the language of the intelligent. There's a level of wit and intelligence needed for effective sarcasm. Boruto is both sarcastic enough and petty enough to do something like that intentionally to Code, basically leave the unspoken threat of, I've already cut up one eye, I will cut up the other eye, and have his hand on his hilt in order to drive home that threat. In my opinion, Boruto or Sasuke sliced up that eye of Code's because, as we've seen in the past, when he first made those claw grinds, he had his eye covered. So I think this might have been done because those two geniuses think that that might have been a way to sever the control of the claw grinds, which would make them easier to take down because they go from being fully controlled by Code to running around mindlessly, which makes them easier to destroy because, as we know from Naruto's manga, the Ten Tails is pure instinct, and it was most effective when Madara and Obito took control of it. I think it's safe to say Sasuke came to that conclusion and proceeded to carry out that plan, or Boruto was the one that carried it out. However, what exactly are the larger community of you guys saying as a whole? Well, based off the DMs I've been getting and some of the comments, the belief is that Code is actually hiding a dojutsu behind that scar. The big reason is that we know based off of Naruto's manga that when someone takes possession of another person's dojutsu, they're unable to turn the eye on or off, which leads to a pretty big hit of stamina as well because their body wasn't born with the Kekkei Genkai needed for said dojutsu. While we've seen people work around that in extreme ways like Danzo, who on top of keeping the eye covered also had Orochimaru make him the Hashirama Cell arm when Orochimaru was a member of Root, with Hashirama Cells allowing him to use multiple Sharingan as well as having Hashirama Cells give both a power boost as well as a stamina boost. But what most people do in this situation is what Kakashi did with the Sharingan and what Ao did with the Byakugan, where Kakashi Kakashi kept his headband covered over it, and Ao wore an eye patch. Code's scar might have come from a mistake transplanting the eye, and he keeps it shut to prevent the stamina drain, or it could have been given to him by whoever gave him said eye, whether they did so willingly or most likely through force. The issue is out of the dojutsu we have canonically in the series. You have the Rinnegan, which not too many people will meet the requirements for, because to get the Rinnegan, it requires you either to have Hagoromo give you the eye directly, or as Hagoromo said, you do what Madara did and you mix the chakra of Ashura's reincarnate and Indra's reincarnate, which is what Madara did. So we can scratch the Rinnegan off the list, unless you think that Code somehow got his hands on Naruto and Sasuke's DNA. And even then, we know based off of the timeline, it took Madara just over 20 years to awaken a Rinnegan, so I don't think that that's the case. The Byakugan is possible, assuming there was some random Hyuga running on a mission outside the Hidden Leaf Village and Code killed them and took their other Byakugan eye. That could be the case. However, most people believe that the eye that Code has is actually Sasuke's eye, which means that Code killed Sasuke and he took his eye as a spoil of war, which means Code is now in possession of a Sharingan that can transform into the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which I'll just say this. None of us think that Sasuke willingly gave that eye to Code, which means he had to have taken it by force. If Code pulled a Madara and snatched out Sasuke's eye, that's just downright disrespectful. However, I do not think Code killed Sasuke or did that. I won't say why I think Sasuke's alive, because I have an editor working on that video right now, and I don't want to give away the points made in that video. That being said, I think it's unlikely that Code killed Sasuke off screen, or that we have Sasuke walking around like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen with his eyes covered up by bandages. At least in Gojo's case, he actually has eyes. Sasuke has an eye, and in this case, he would have no eyes. Perhaps if Ukyo Kodachi was the one still writing the story, I could see Sasuke being hampered in this way, only because Kodachi, the former Boruto writer of the manga and the anime, openly said the elements of My Hero Academia inspired what he was doing for Boruto's manga and anime. So the idea of Sasuke pulling an All Might and being given what appeared to be his final hurrah, only to be left with major damage as a result, forces him to entrust his student with the battles moving forward. I would totally buy that if it was Kodachi writing. With Kishimoto, I don't see that being the case. Even if some plot points that Kodachi set up are still being used, I don't see this happening, nor do I see Kishimoto paying off the statement that he made in 2016 when he said any character from Naruto's generation, they can be killed in an attempt to raise the stakes of the story. I don't see him making Sasuke the first person from Naruto's generation to be killed via an off-screen death. That seems highly unlikely to me. Even Kurama, a character who wasn't from Naruto's generation but was still a legacy character, even Kurama got a proper on-screen death. So I do think that that has to be factored in. I'm not gonna say a dojutsu is unlikely, because it could be a dojutsu. I just don't think that it's Sasuke's, and that's why I'm saying I think it's highly unlikely that it's Sasuke's Sharingan. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it is Sasuke's eye, but I feel pretty strongly to say it isn't Sasuke's Sharingan that Code's in possession of. That much I'm fairly certain about. Now, the other thing I've seen people say is that Code might have gotten the scar of his eye because something went wrong with trying to control an army of that many 10-tailed soldiers slash claw grimes. Basically, that there might be some sort of a backfire to this power he has to use to create and control so many claw grimes, which resulted in a scar. This one I think is more likely than Sasuke's Sharingan opinion that you guys have asked me to discuss. Every jutsu has a weakness, and the more overpowered the jutsu, the more chakra it consumes, or in some cases, the more time is required to set it up, or it comes with a major price in order to use. So this one is believable. I could buy into the belief that Code is keeping his eye closed because it has something to do with his connection to his 10-tailed soldiers. We saw in the past he had to keep the eye covered, and the idea he might have, say, potentially lost that eye as a result of having that many soldiers, that's something I could believe because it fits the consistency of the jutsu, being that busted, having some kind of a price for using it, or some kind of a weakness. It won't fully explain why he has the scar, but it would explain why you're seeing the eye itself being closed. I think when we really sit down and start reading the chapters as they start coming out, we're going to see that the answer is something pretty simple that we overlook. That's part of the beauty of reading an ongoing series. You have to sit around and speculate what comes in next week's chapter, or the bi-weekly chapter, or the monthly chapter, or the quarterly chapter. And when you get the reveal, you get to go back and see what signs there are that are hinted towards said reveal. It's one of the things I personally enjoy about reading One Piece, which to those of you guys who subscribe to my One Piece channel, Straw Hat Kryptonian saying, I finally got a new set of thumbnails made, so I'll have reviews being uploaded starting Monday. I apologize for the delay from the reviews. Now back to Boruto. The biggest thing we have to keep in mind is that when whatever the reason is, while it's fun to speculate, try not to get too upset if you're super locked in on one theory in particular and it ends up not being true. That's what happens with ongoing series. Authors throw us for swerves all the time. If you guys follow my Chainsaw Man reviews on Kryptonian saying, I've gotten some stuff right with Chainsaw Man. I've gotten a lot wrong because Fujimoto tends to subvert our expectations, but I'm still excited as every chapter comes out. Am I bummed out, say with Boruto, that Kakashi didn't return as Hokage? Sure, but I still enjoyed Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 1 all the same. That being said, I'm curious to know you guys' thoughts on this. How do you think that Code actually got the scar over his eye? Why you think that over? Click here to show some love to my Chainsaw Man chapter review.